Viewers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the EPL matches which took place over the weekend. We'll also be looking ahead to some Champions League action, semi-final, second leg, coming up Tuesday and Wednesday. And that match will determine the finalists of this year's Champions League. Now, joining me this evening to talk some football. We have returned into the podcast, Christoph.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, indeed, Christoph, and we're gonna kick things off right over the Emirates, Christoph. Arsenal, their slide from the top four seem to be continuing. Arteta, Christoph, put out his first 11 and were beaten by Bournemouth. What's your thinking on that decision? And can they progress in their Champions League as a result of this result?
Um, so for me, it was rather, disappointing result. I think Arsenal should have gone on to win the game. You're leading halftime.
Right.
Uh, I think probably the biggest thing for me was that Arteta took too long to make changes, and then he made three or
Four
four
changes, right?
changes
After the
after
74th minute.
the game was basically lost. I was
Mhm.
like, why are you making these changes when you had so much time in between to kind of.
But what's your thought process on the 11 he decided to start? That was my major concern. I mean, with a Champions League game against PSG coming up Wednesday, you being 1-0 down, and you still decide to put your best 11 out there. What was your thought process, or what's your take on that decision? And will that come back to haunt Arsenal going forward in the Champions League?
Potentially it could hurt them. I think it was one of two things. Either it was a case where he wanted to experiment with something for the PSG game, or it's a case where he is wary of, potentially dropping out of the top four, because that is a real possibility at the moment. 3 point, Man City is 3 points off. Newcastle 4 points off, and it's a very real possibility that if
To
they
me, if
continue
you're
to
gonna
do
start
poorly.
your best 11, Christoph, you cannot afford to lose that game. Otherwise, it's like you're putting all your eggs in one basket. To
So
me, my decision would have been to rotate the squad. And then if you get a draw or a win, you take it. But to play your first 11 and then you still end up losing, it simply means that more wear and tear on your players to go up against PSG, who
so
ironically pretty much rotated heavily.
Yeah, all of the teams left in the Champions League except Arsenal played their what you would say their B teams. Did not play any
Right,
of their
right.
first
Even
choice
Barcelona,
starters.
I mean, players were just hanging out on the bench over there in Barcelona, and they're in the thick of La Liga fight for the champions to become champions. They're in a dog fight over there in La Liga, and the coach was smart enough, in my opinion, to rotate his squad. But
Right.
again, Arteta, questionable decision in my opinion,
It,
very questionable.
it is partially questionable. I do think he should have rotated the squad. And barring that, not rotating the squad, he should have made changes much earlier in the game. For me, the changes should have come at the 68th minute. Um,
Gotcha.
the 60th minute, you didn't score any extra goals, you rotate out all the players. Not only did I think he took too long to make the changes, I thought he made the incorrect changes as well.
Mm,
Um, Skelly, I would have not withdrawn Skelly, I would have withdrawn Declan Rice. Smart move. Rice has been your best player last couple of games.
right,
Withdraw
right.
Rice, move Skelly into midfield, bring on Kieran Tierney. Tierney is very good at crossing the ball. You now have a secondary option to get the ball into the box. Bring on Mikel Merino, who is very tall and good at headers. You have Tierney, you have Merino,
So you have this,
you have,
you
you
have the
have a
supply line,
you
and
have
then you
a
have the finisher.
exactly. So I
So you
thought
have
it
a
was
plan B, pretty much get it wide, swing in some crosses, and you get some header and goal. But
right. Tierney is very good at crossing. We've seen that in the games that he's come on. He has found his target almost every cross that he makes. We know Mikel Merino is good in the air. We know he's good with headers. He's what 6'2" as well. So there you go. I thought he made the poor choices, but also the Arsenal squad is very thin. That could have been a factor on his mind that he does not have any subs on the bench.
To
It,
me, it's
uh,
a case where he doesn't trust his squad, in my opinion. It's not that the squad is thin, but players are there who have played in the EPL before. It's not as if you're bringing out youngsters. He just doesn't trust his squad, is my conclusion. And I mean, this could definitely haunt Arsenal come Champions League time. But speaking of Champions League, Christoph, looking ahead now, this result is now behind you. Pressure is
no,
on.
no, no, no. I don't think we move from that yet. I like I said, I strongly believe Arsenal should have won the game, but
Okay,
also
okay.
if you recall, if you watch the game, you would have seen that Bournemouth won and a goal that should have been disallowed.
Mm.
It was a handball checked by the VAR and allowed to stand. So
Ah,
again, poor
so
decisions.
the theory surrounding the referees continue then,
It
Christoph.
it, it has to. Liverpool has already won the league, so
Right?
I'm starting to think it could be that they are just superbly incompetent, or
Well,
again, like I said,
but I didn't
purely
really
malicious.
see that getting much traction, to be honest, Christoph.
You don't see the
I
handball getting much traction. It was
yeah,
a
I didn't see
handball.
that getting much
The ball,
traction
the
in the, you know.
hand was not in a natural position. It was a handball.
But
But
again, no point crying over spilled milk at this point
we're
in
not going
time.
to we're not going to get the point, so
Yeah,
it
the
doesn't
results
matter
won't be
at this
changed
point.
or reversed. So
But
looking
there
ahead,
should be
let's look
some
ahead.
review.
Yeah, let's look ahead to the Champions League action coming up on Wednesday. Playing away to PSG in France, one goal down. Players getting some extra minutes under their legs or in their legs. PSG players well rested, comforts of home, possibly a hostile environment for this Arsenal team. Can we see Arsenal going forward into the finals? Can they go into the cauldron and get a result? What's your take? What's your call? What's your
Um,
impression?
I think the biggest issue for Arsenal coming into this game is potentially those fatigue levels. How well rested are the players going to be? Are tired? Um, I I don't know how they're that because it's not some giant deficit that needs to be overcome. It is 1-0. You get an early goal, you're back in the game.
With the
PSG.
possibility of extra time as well. That has to be a factor also. And as you mentioned, extra minutes in the legs while PSG players were being rested. So all of these things, as they say in football, it is small margins at this high level, and you have to try to get any little advantage you can. So, I mean, that's probably the last thing Arsenal would want to go into extra time because surely PSG with the rested players should be have the fresher legs and probably will be covering more ground in terms of running and energy. So what to say? But in terms of how you see this one playing out, though, Christoph, how do you see this one playing out? What will be the approach? Will it be PSG sitting back, Arsenal attacking, and PSG playing on the counter, or will we see PSG continue to press high and take the game to Arsenal? What's your impression in terms of the tactical approach that either coach will take going into this one?
I think PSG will be smart enough to know that 1-0 is a false. It's not a very secure result. So I think they will play. They will try to play and press high and try to get goals. Um, how early they get or don't get goals is up in the air. I think Arsenal, but PSG could very well play on the counter attack. It's 1-0 halftime. You're leading. You could sit back knowing that Arsenal does not have an out and out striker to potentially threaten your defenders, so to speak. They still have ways of scoring, but there's no striker to really put pressure on the defense. And they could then soak up the pressure and hit on the counter attack because they do have a lot of pace in the PSG team, Hakimi, Dembele, and so on. So, that is an option. I do think that they will press Arsenal high and try to win the game though. Early
So
out.
what's your call for the scoreline? And who progresses to the finals?
I think it's a match that can go either way at the moment. It's still on a knife's edge. I give the edge currently to PSG, having going into this game with a lead and playing at home. So I give the edge to PSG. It can still go either way.
And you see things playing on in regulation time, or do you foresee extra time?
I think it will finish in regulation time. I do, like you said, if it goes extra time though, I think PSG will win. I don't. Arsenal doesn't have the bench at the moment, and they don't have the legs. So if they can finish it in regular time, if it finishes in regular time, again edge to PSG, Arsenal can still win. But if it goes to extra time, it's a PSG win in my opinion.
Well, I personally, I just think PSG is on a mission this year, to be honest. I think they will go to the final, and my money is behind them in terms of winning it overall. So for me, I'm
Um,
backing PSG fully to
um,
get a result against this Arsenal outfit.
if PSG got to the final, I don't think PSG can beat either Barcelona or Inter Milan. In my
I
opinion, I
definitely
think
beg to differ. I think PSG is playing the best football in Europe right now, in all
I,
honesty.
I, I don't think
From a balanced perspective, both
I,
attack, defense, and midfield.
I don't
I
think
don't
you
see a better midfield trio in Europe right now than the
I,
PSG midfield in
if
terms of
you
the balance they bring.
if you're making that statement, that comment, I
Yeah,
don't think
Vitinha, I think Vitinha is a very underrated gem, and
if
suitors should
you're
be lining up for his signature come the
again
summer.
if you're making that statement, I don't
Dembele
think
is
you
probably the hottest tacker on show right now
nobody
in
no
Europe.
nobody will buy Dembele.
Well, I'm not saying people will buy him. I'm just saying currently on farm, he is like
That's
an unstoppable force currently.
that
Oh yes, I mean Dembele. That injury-prone Dembele, formerly of Barcelona, formerly of Dortmund. I mean,
I
his talent have never really been questioned.
if
It's his consistency and his health.
if you were to say who is the hottest attacker in Europe, it would have to be Yamal at Barcelona.
Well,
But
I think the numbers. I think the numbers. He has better numbers than Yamal.
Yamal plays in a
Yamal
far
may get a better media highlight, but when
oh
you look at the raw numbers, Dembele's leaps and abound
oh
Yamal in terms of productivity and
de
attacking returns.
definitely overall is going to show Dembele has
Yes,
the
definitely,
higher
for sure.
stats.
Of
But
course.
there's a
Why
factor
not?
that you seem to be missing is that
What's that?
Yamal plays in a far more difficult league
Well,
than Dembele.
again, you have to play what's in front of you, you know? Yeah,
That being said, I do not think you said PSG is the hottest team in Europe. I
I think,
fully
yeah.
disagree. The best team in Europe right now is Inter Milan.
Well, time will tell. So you're saying then, do you foresee Inter getting the better of Barcelona? Is the
I
question.
I I back Inter to move on to the next round.
You back Inter.
I back Inter to move on to the
Wow,
finals.
that's a bold call. Even with Barcelona have the hottest prospect according to you in Europe.
The way how Inter plays, defends, and attacks is very very unpredictable. Very
Yeah, but
interesting.
do you have any faith in Hansi Flick in terms of
Oh
coming up with
no!
a tactical approach that
Don't
can
don't
utilize the strengths of Barcelona and get the better of this
don't get
Inter
me
team?
wrong. Hansi Flick, great coach. Barcelona in great form. I just think Inter is better. Inter is
Hmm.
good
So
attacking
you're
going
saying if
forward.
Inter makes it to the final, Inter will go on to lift the title, is what you're saying?
I
Having
think
rated them as the best in Europe, I mean,
you
surely.
you you said PSG will move
PSG,
on to the final.
definitely. That's where my money is.
I do not think PSG can beat either Inter or Barca. So PSG moves on to the final. PSG will not beat Inter. PSG will not beat Barca. Whoever moves on from that bracket.
So what if it's an Arsenal victory that brings them through? What says you then?
So
Can
I don't think Arsenal can beat Barca, but I do think Arsenal could beat Inter.
so what give Arsenal the edge over Inter and not
Some
Barcelona?
some
And you're saying
sometimes
Barcelona will beat Arsenal?
sometimes
It's not adding up. That maths is not mathsing.
sometimes it's the style of play that clashes with each other, and one
Mm.
style just beats out another, regardless of how good the opponent is. I think the way Arsenal plays will beat Inter. It will be a very close tie. I think Inter style of play, how Inter play, Inter went to the Camp Nou and got three. Regardless of if Barcelona scored three, they're at home. They're very attacking minded. Um, Inter went to the Camp Nou and got three. I don't see Barca going to the the San Siro.
Yes, San Siro.
I don't see Barca going to the San Siro and getting three.
Yeah, why not? I mean, they have two of the hottest forwards in Europe right now. Rafinha, you're forgetting about Rafinha as
Oh
well.
no, Rafinha
He's
absolutely brilliant, brilliant
Yeah,
all
he's
season.
possibly a Ballon d'Or nominee this year, Christoph, with the sort of form and quality he brings. And then you have Lamal backing him up as well. And then through the middle, you have several options through the middle, who, I mean, with Lewandowski out, possibly this is a more fluid Barcelona attack as well. Lewandowski would normally play that number nine, that point
Mhm,
forward. But now you have other forwards who can run in behind and give you that extra dimension in terms of the attack,
mhm,
for example. So
mhm,
ah,
mhm,
I wouldn't
mhm.
necessarily count Barcelona out at all, Christoph.
I am not. I am not counting Barcelona out, you know. I am simply saying I think Inter is better and Inter will move on. I'm not
Mm.
counting Barcelona out. Barcelona do very well in Champions League. They are also quite lucky when it comes to decisions being made and the on-field decisions.
Well,
Um,
I mean, that was a
but
very close call there, that offside call, but as play as
historically, 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 what I have seen, Barcelona
offside by a toe.
in these types of tough games, in these tough games, Barcelona does not usually progress when the second leg is not played at the Camp Nou.
Well, that is what I had said earlier in terms of the historical nature of the Champions League. Is usually the team which plays the second leg at home, which tends to go through. So it would not surprise me one bit, in all honesty, if it was Inter who went through, but I wouldn't necessarily count Barcelona out. But from a historical point of view, and if you were playing the percentages, then it would be a wise decision if you back both home teams in this regard, and especially PSG with that one goal cushion. So it wouldn't surprise me if Inter made it through. I mean, as you mentioned, the personnel is there. Uh, Obviously, there's no fear when it comes to this Barcelona team per se. And of course, you're going into another hostile Italian environment as well. Probably more hostile than you would expect at the new camp, for sure, when you play in Italy. That San Siro is really a cauldron. Uh, so, and I'm sure the fans will definitely be out and
The
it will be very
ultras,
loud in Italy right there. The entire Italy may be tuning into this game, and you're not only tuning in, but that stadium should be filled to capacity. So it's definitely going to be a real test for this Barcelona team, Christoph. So as I said, it wouldn't surprise me if it's the Italians who came away with the win and progressed to the finals. But I would still not write Barcelona off. I mean, they have two of the hottest forwards in Europe at the moment, and their confidence is sky high. And uh, as we saw in the first leg, quality is there. It only takes a moment of magic. But again, quality is there on both sides. I mean, that Thuram strike, Christoph, that Thuram strike must be up for a Puskas nominee. I mean, that cross from the right where he flicked it behind him, and the quality strike. As especially so early in the game as well, an audacious attempt which came off to perfection. And that started a good game for Inter. They could not have hoped for a better start in the Champions League. That first goal really settled the team and they never looked back. They just need to probably tighten up defensively, not allow Barcelona so much space, special attention to Yamal and Rafinha in terms of cutting in and kicking. That has to be an area that Inter looks to stifle. It's best to rather send them down the line versus allowing them to cut in and put in that curling shot. So at home, wouldn't necessarily write off the Italians, but you can't look past Barcelona either. So officially though, Christoph, so what is your call in terms of the two teams to progress from each semi-final? What's your final call for those?
I guess at the moment I am in favor of PSG Inter Milan final.
PSG Inter Milan final. I'm gonna go with PSG Barca final. I'm gonna go against the odds. My gut instincts and my mathematics is telling me to back the Italians, seeing that they're at home. But I just think Barcelona is playing some good football this season. Didn't get the win at home, but possibly They should be able to pull it up. They have shown resilience in terms of coming from behind, and they may yet have to do that again in Italy, come from behind. So for me, I'm gonna go PSG Barcelona. PSG Barcelona. But should be some very interesting games. Those Tuesday would be the Inter versus Barcelona, and then on Wednesday you have PSG versus Arsenal. So those are two intense games that I'll definitely be looking out for. But swinging back to the EPL, Christoph, we saw a few more upsets. I mean, you could classify that Bournemouth win over Arsenal an upset. One would have expected Arsenal to win with their full strength 11. But we also saw Chelsea taking the scalp of the league winners, Liverpool. That was a shock result for me. And we saw a
No, not
number of
shocking. Not
goals which
shocking.
you could say were self-inflicted by Liverpool, Christoph.
I don't think it
That
was a
that
shocking result. Liverpool. This is Liverpool's first game after winning the league,
right,
right?
right.
So again, we said Liverpool has absolutely nothing playing for
Nothing to
Liverpool.
play for.
I, I think if Liverpool could forego playing the remaining matches of the
Right,
season,
right.
they would. They would. That would be the
But they
case.
just have to see out the fixtures. And we
Right.
saw
I
a
think that's it.
rotation by the coach, and we pretty much saw a drop in concentration levels as well, which what led to at least two of those goals.
Yeah, they don't care.
Self-inflicted.
They didn't care. They didn't care.
Right,
They
for
didn't.
sure.
So it's not that game that we can read into Chelsea about. It's more
It's true.
telling that
That's true.
Liverpool, they are the one. They don't care. They don't
Yeah,
have
this is
anything
probably the
able playing for.
Liverpool we'll see going forward for the
Remainder
final
of the
three
season,
fixtures. Right,
right?
right.
So
Heavy rotation, just seeing out the fixture. Anything happens, so to speak. Not much motivation. Pretty much just seeing the fixtures through and giving players the opportunity to play who may not have gotten much minutes earlier in the season. Possibly getting a quota of appearance to receive a medal as well and soaking up those guard of honors, Christoph. I guess the next one would be Arsenal should be paying homage.
I mean, a team can refuse to provide a guard of honor. It's not a requirement.
So are you saying Arsenal will
No, I don't think.
decide not to give Liverpool a guard of honor?
I'm not saying that. I'm just
Especially
saying
if they are
it's not a
dismissed by
requirement.
PSG because that game will be after the PSG game. So
Right. It will be
imagine,
this weekend.
yeah, imagine losing to PSG and then having to give Liverpool a guard of honor. Humiliating stuff possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, that was definitely a shock result per se. Well, as you said, we weren't sure which Liverpool would turn up, so it was an unpredictable result. But kudos to Chelsea for taking advantage. That definitely boosts their chances of finishing in the top four, which I had personally written them off, in all honesty. My money was on Newcastle and Forest, and both those two teams draw. Christoph, they got a point each. Newcastle drawing with Brighton 1-1 coming from behind, late goal by Isaac. And similarly, Forest and Crystal Palace also drew by a similar scoreline. That one finishing 1-1 as
And
well.
one
That man
today.
again, Eze Christoph, was on the score sheet. And again, he's a player that I have suggested to you Arsenal need to go and get. He is an attacker which can play both on the wing or in that number 10 role, Christoph. And he could be an excellent addition to this Arsenal attack. I am telling you, he is a man Arsenal should be setting their sights on in terms of getting his signature come the summer because he would fill he's one player will fill the role of two, and Arteta seemed to like these types of purchases, players who can play multiple positions, and he's a player who can play in the 10, that's position that an Odegaard occupies, and he can also play out wide on the flanks as well. And he is the creative heartbeat of this Crystal Palace team. And to me, he would be an excellent addition to this Arsenal team if Arsenal is serious about winning titles. At this point in time, I am not sure if Arsenal is serious about winning the EPL title. What says you?
I am not sure that it's per se if Arsenal is serious about winning the title. I think Arsenal is serious about winning the title. Mikel Arteta is serious about winning the title. The players are serious. I think it's more we have to question again the ownership. Are they serious about winning titles?
Yeah,
Because if
but I
you're
mean, it's not the owners going out there to play, Christoph. I mean,
oh, but
it's the players, and
it's the
Arteta have been
owners.
backed in the transfer market.
It's
He has been
it's
backed. Money has been spent.
it
100
is
million on Rice.
it, irrelevant. That is irrelevant. Rice was bought last season. Irrelevant. Nobody was bought.
Well,
Nobody was really bought.
yes, man.
Summer.
Mourinho came in. Mourinho.
Just listen, man. Just listen. Just listen.
Mourinho came in.
If you recall, in December, I said Arsenal will not win the title unless January they sign a striker.
Right. So
The
said, so
squad,
done then. That prediction has come true.
the squad was basically down to bare bones in December anyway. Players were out injured, and we were already out both strikers at that time. I said, if you want to win the title, have to get a striker. You need to make some signs that they were short, but the number one signing had to be a striker. No striker, but as such, the title has slipped away. A
But
couple of
but
games
but
where,
but
as
realistically, looking back though, Christoph, I mean, this is now done and dusted. But looking back, realistically, in terms of a striker, who could Arsenal realistically have bought? Who would have
listen.
satisfied your
It
appetite for a striker?
it is who Arsenal could have bought in
Yes,
January.
realistically.
Right, no. Who Arsenal could have bought in January right now is irrelevant. What is relevant is that
Mm.
no action was taken, no attempt to sign a striker. No,
I see that. I see
that
that.
is the relevant part. Regardless
Mm.
of who was available in
So
January,
Arsenal not serious then.
no attempt was made. The ownership is not serious.
So you're saying, are you saying therefore then, Arteta went to ownership and say, hey, Ollie Watkins, I want to buy Ollie Watkins. And you're saying the ownership refused to spend. That's what
That
you're saying to me.
that is half to what happened because
Mm,
the manager said it before. Hey, we're short. We need some players. The players say we're short. We need players. There is
mm.
no way that you, the owner of the club, you're in second.
Oh, but
Not you're not far off at first. I think at that time it was probably maybe 5 points at most, right? At
right,
that time,
right.
right? You can't be watching your team a couple points off. You see all the injuries, even if you don't know football. You hired a manager, you hired a technical director, whatever, and they come to you and said, "Hey, we're short. We need a couple more players, and we could potentially win the
But
title." And you
maybe
took
we're seeing
no
the
action
impact
in
of
January.
Edu at this point in time, Christoph. Remember, Edu was sacked, was fired, was run out of the club, it seems. Are we now seeing where Edu would have advocated for such a player?
It 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 it,
Are we
it
seeing
is
the impact of that?
whether or not Edu was fired is
Mm.
irrelevant, right? The club
So you're
still
saying
needs
you're not
when,
see it's
whether
not
you
part
have
of
a
the impact,
whether you have no, I'm saying whether you have a technical director or not, the club must know that players need for either sign, sold, loan out, whatever,
right?
give away for free. There is no way that the manager did not say to the hierarchy or the hierarchy to Josh, to Stan Cranky, hey,
Right.
I need a couple more players in January, whether it be on loan or I'm going to buy them. Regardless of who was available, we do not see any attempt to purchase any players. We heard rumors that maybe Arsenal went for Ollie Watkins.
Right.
We heard
No,
like
but we
basically
heard. I mean, we heard that offer was refused, 75 million pound.
we heard at the basically what they like the 29th or 30th of
So you're saying
Arsenal.
Arsenal wasn't serious then?
Arsenal made no statement that they went for Ollie Watkins. We hear Aston Villa made that claim.
Mm,
Arsenal at the end
I
of
see.
January said that they had a deal in place for Martin Zumbi or whatever. They made a deal for a defensive midfielder or whatever, and it's not even a done deal, right? No fee has changed, and nobody has signed any contract. It's not a done deal. June could come, July could come, and Martin Zumbia is probably not an Arsenal player. It's not a
Well,
done deal or
that's
anything
looking
like that.
up. That's looking ahead. That's looking up a field. I mean,
No,
there's ways to
that
go before we get to that
no,
point.
that's fine. They can look ahead or whatever. What Arsenal needed in January was a striker, first of all, with your two strikers out injured for the remainder of the season. First thing you needed was a striker, right? You needed cover in other areas as well. No, you didn't need cover in defensive midfield at that time. You probably need it now, but you didn't need it at that time. A striker was needed and cover for other players was needed. Nothing was
So
done.
it seems
No
as if
player
things are
was
falling
signed.
apart of Arsenal at the moment then,
So
Christoph.
like I'm saying, even if the manager is serious, if the hierarchy, the ownership is not serious about winning the title, the manager has to do the best with what they have, right?
So
You
second
can't,
is the best then
you can't.
at
Arsenal
this
could have
point in
come
time.
at
Finishing
this
second
point.
is the best
At this
with the
point in
resources
time,
available,
with the resources available, they couldn't manage first. Last
right?
season, it was the same thing. I said, bring in a strike. Arsenal brought in a striker last season. They potentially would have won the league. All they
Mm,
needed was one more victory last season and they win the league.
gotcha, gotcha. Time will tell. Time will tell for sure. But where things are definitely heating up is in those minor positions. Pretty much second to fifth at the moment. Man City. Really putting the screws or turning the screws on this Arsenal team. And they seem to be feeling the heat going down to Bournemouth. City getting another win under their belt. Newcastle, Forest dropping off slightly, and also Aston Villa. Aston Villa making up some ground as well. That was a surprising result for me in terms of that Aston Villa 1-0 victory over Fulham. So definitely Aston Villa is not done for the count as yet, Christoph. But Christoph, after this week result, how are things shaping up in the top four? Have your predictions shifted slightly? Who are the teams that should be looking to finish second to fifth in those Champions League position? And we also see possibly England getting an extra Champions League position, Christoph, with possibly Spurs and Manchester United meeting in the Europa League final. That would give England an additional Champions League spot to the winning team of that potential clash.
It might not. There's talks of the Europa League winner not automatically getting that spot anymore. There is
What?
a yeah, yes, there are talks about it.
So you're
That
changing the rules in the middle of the game?
I'm not changing the rules. UEFA is discussing it that the Europa League winner
No,
does
no,
not
no, no. That has
automatically
to be a
qualify.
shaky move. If that was to be, I
I
mean, you
think
already decided on the prize before the tournament kicked off, so you can't
I
change
think
the
no,
rules in the middle of the game.
yeah, that's just it. It probably won't affect this season, but potentially the future season. It
Oh,
probably
well,
won't affect
that's
this
a
season,
different case, but
but
for sure.
it is something that UEFA is discussing that the winner of the Europa League does not necessarily automatically qualify for a Champions League spot anymore. So,
Mm,
but I mean,
interesting
so
times.
potentially England could have 6 spots in the next.
Yes, well, it's not potential. It seems to be that way because, I mean, United with a 3-0 goal cushion, one would expect, barring a modern day miracle, Manchester United should be in the final, and Spurs having a 3-1 lead. That's a two-goal cushion, and the second leg being played at home. Again, one would expect that Spurs should progress. So it would take a brave man to
I
bet
mean,
against a United Spurs final,
Spurs. I expect a United. Let me be clear. I expect a United Spurs final, but
right?
both teams for the last couple of seasons have had some very questionable track record. Again, as I said, Spurs tends to fizzle out at the end of the season. I said last season, we like Ange Postecoglou. We like how he's having Spurs play. But I said the first season for a Spurs manager is usually well. Second season is where the issue is, and so said.
Well, again, well, Pochettino did come out earlier in the season and say usually in his second season he win trophies, and that is coming to pass at the moment. He definitely has an outstanding opportunity to win a trophy in Europe, breaking the Spurs curse. It would appear, putting
I
an
mean,
end to the trophyless drought,
I, a win is a win. If they go on and they win the Europa League, a win is a win. Fine, you collect a trophy, but you finish 17th in the
right?
league,
Yeah, I
and
mean that will still be papering over the cracks, but a trophy is always a welcome gem for any club, Christoph. It comes with a high profile in terms of media attention. It also adds to the CV of the coach and possibly buys him time in the eyes of the fans as well as management. So, I mean, I see no negatives from winning a
Uh,
trophy.
um, I think in the case of Ange Postecoglou, I think even winning the Europa League, Spurs would probably still dismiss him. I think.
Well, time will tell, but
I
definitely winning the trophy will help his cause to
I
remain
think
in his job.
definitely, 100%. Spurs is even if he wins, goes on and wins the Europa League, I think he's still going to get dismissed at the end of the
So you're
season.
saying he will be a managerial casualty at the end of the season, is what you're saying?
Regardless of result, I think Postecoglou will be a casual will be fired by Spurs at the end
Any
of the
other,
season.
are you seeing any other casualties at the end of the season?
At the end of this
At the
season,
moment, yeah, looking on in terms of the EPL, any
um,
other manager that is in danger of being fired at the end of the season?
potentially, what's his name over Chelsea, Mariska,
Mareshka.
potentially,
I thought,
potentially.
no, I mean, if you finish in the top four, I don't see that happening.
Uh,
Or even in a European position. I mean, if you're in the mix, going down to the final day and you're in the mix, as Chelsea was a couple seasons ago, I don't see them firing him at all. I
I
think
think
that
so.
club needs a bit of stability and he
I
should
think
be around for next season.
I I think they will fire him. I'm not 100. I'm 50-50 on him. I think he could be a potential casualty.
I think if Chelsea is in the mix, which they look to be in the mix, fighting for that Champions League position among the other teams, I don't see Chelsea getting rid of him. I think Chelsea will stabilize under him. Again, go in the transfer window,
I
buy
think
some more players and try to come again next season. But for sure, they won't be winning the title anytime soon.
even United. I think even Amarin potentially not winning the Europa League could probably see him on the chopping block. Not
No, not at
necessarily.
all. I think Amarin is a long-term investment, regardless of the results this
No,
season.
I
You have
think
to give him a few windows, otherwise it's
yeah,
just the same circle going over and over.
I agree with you that he should be given a few windows, but
Yes, man.
I
I
think
don't have any fear of that.
listen, I think potentially not winning the Europa League puts him on the chopping block. Again, like you said, winning a trophy gives you leverage.
Definitely. I mean, it buys
I
you time
think
as well.
I think him going to the final and potentially losing to Spurs takes away any sort of good faith that he have. And he is not that he will 100% get fired. I think not winning the Europa League does put him on the chopping block.
Time will tell. Time will definitely tell.
And again,
Indeed. But
like I said, I think Postecoglou, regardless of how the season
he's
finishes
out.
out, I think he's out. Yeah.
I wouldn't get rid of Pochettino at all. I think
I,
Spurs just need to make some investment in their squad and
honestly, I would not be surprised if even if he won, he him and they didn't fire him, he would just walk on his oath.
mm,
I think he would
uh,
walk. I think he is displeased with upper management, and I think he's very displeased with the Spurs fan base, especially after last season when Spurs had lost to Man City. And Spurs fans were actually celebrating the loss. I think that was very
oh, when the Spurs fans wanted to hand the title to City into the
right,
Arsenal.
right. I think that there for him was very. He said that was
Oh,
very
that
eye-opening
was
for
the
him.
game in which that brilliant save was made, I believe.
It was also that game where Son was, one on one with the keeper,
Yes,
easy.
yes, and the keeper made a brilliant. Yes, I recall, I
I'm
recall,
not
I
sure. I'm
recall,
not
I
sure it was
recall.
a brilliant save, or I think it was more a poor finish.
Indeed, indeed. But we're quickly running out of time, Christoph. In fact, we're pretty much out of time. Not much more to add. We're just looking forward to the Champions League games coming up Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll be back Thursday to dissect the result and look ahead to the EPL games coming up on the weekend. But Christoph, thanks again for coming through and sharing your thoughts and your opinions. Always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Viewers and subscribers, thanks for tuning in to us here on Beating the Press podcast. Continue to share, like, and if you haven't subscribed as yet, hit that subscription bell. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.